Sabbath is not just about taking a day off. You have to first ask yourself, where am I second guessing God? And it may be something you've been second guessing him for so many years you forgot about it because you've been thinking that way for so long. Where am I second guessing God? Because second guessing God will kill your chances of a Sabbath lifestyle. You can't find rest in somebody you don't trust. You cannot. You can't fake it, y'all. There is no amount of retreating and no amount of journaling and quiet time that's going to give you real peace if you don't think God is a provider. It's the truth. And the enemy will hold us captive with that old pain. He'll make us miss the bread and the meat, and we don't realize we were eating it in chains. We don't realize we were eating in chains. God is like, okay, you might be a little hungry, but you're free. Come on. That's not even my main point. Now listen, got me off track. Second guessing God, that is my point, will make you forfeit a Sabbath lifestyle. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? Here's the second thing. God's faithfulness is the foundation of our rest. When we rest in his ability, we're resting in his faithfulness. God's faithfulness is the foundation, of our rest. Inconsistency, we all know, creates anxiety. It creates anxiety. So it's the kind of inconsistencies that says, I don't know if my flight's going to be canceled. I don't know if so-and-so's going to pick me up on time. You know when you have a meeting or a gathering and you don't know if certain people are going to show up on time or if they're even coming. Okay, nobody RSVP, but 20 people showed up. Like that kind of stuff. It's little things that we realize what creates anxiety is inconsistency. It's lack of faithfulness. And so God showed them he was faithful. Verse 21 says what? They gathered it morning by morning. What does Lamentations 3 tell us? That steadfast is the love of the Lord. His mercies are made new every morning. So God's faithfulness, even though they were hoarders and they didn't trust him, he remained faithful. And his faithfulness, his consistency, his character, which is immutable, unchanging, never wavering, promise keeping, is what we rest on in a Sabbath lifestyle. This idea of God's faithfulness creating a peace and rest for us is like if you've ever seen a baby being held by a person that's upset or stressful, that baby responds to that. They're not going to go to sleep while you crying or while your heart is racing. It's that idea that we are very sensitive to that. And if there's anxiety, if you don't think God can be trusted, you're not going to be able to rest. You have to believe that God is faithful and that he's consistent. And if you're not convinced, then you can do a proof test. Just think of one time in your life that God did not come through. Just think of one time. Not when he didn't come through the way you wanted him to. When he did not come through. And if you think you have a couple, ask some people around you in your life and they'll probably show you that he still came through. Because he's faithful, y'all. He never fails and he never leaves. He's always there. And this faithfulness, it's like, I went on a road trip. I was telling you, we drove to Houston and my mom was driving. And I do like driving, but I was tired and it was just crazy weather and holiday traffic. It's crazy. So by the time we got to her house, I was like, I'm going to chill in this passenger seat. Listen, let me tell you something. You can't go to sleep in the passenger seat on every driver. Okay? Since it was my mama, I was like, once them kids settled down, I went right on to sleep, right? Because if you're not sure of who's driving, I don't know if my sister's going to hear this message, but listen, when my sister driving, is she in here? I hope she's not in here. Y'all, my sister, I'm like, are we on four wheels? What? Is that smoke coming out our tire? Listen, that girl be driving, okay? I'm like, I'm always like this one eye. I'm like, no, I don't need to go to sleep. You carry on. I'll sit over here. But it's that kind of rest, right? When you feel like you trust the person and when you feel like this person got it, nothing's going to change. They're faithful. Some people, they're like clockwork. They're dependable. Those are the kind of friends that they put you at ease. There's some people that always need something. You don't know what's going on with them. Every conversation, you don't know what's going to come out of their mouth, what they might need, what they might say. And when they call, when they send a text, you can just feel you know what I'm saying? You're like, oh, Lord, unread message. And then you're like, is there a way I can read this and it still be unread? I know y'all do it. I know you do it. You be trying to read the preview. Talking about, can you? Dang it. Am I going to have to open this? Because that's what happens. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all laughing because you're guilty. We do it all the time. This is the worst. So when people that I don't know very well, or we don't have regular business, when I get a text and they say, call me. Why? I'm like, about what? Like regarding? Like what? I don't want to make a phone call, just a cold call and be like, hey, like dump the world on me. You know, I need something because that stuff makes me stressed. It's just like, it's anxiety. But there's certain people that call. My grandmother's calling. I'm like, oh, it's my granny. She's going to give me a word. So I know what it is, right? But it makes a difference, right? Depending on who's trying to contact you. You can feel the change in your body instantly, can't you? When you see that, you're like, okay, help me, Lord. So this faithfulness is important. It's the consistency. It's character that creates our ability to rest. And so if we translate that to what we think about God, some of us not only have struggled with God being a provider, we don't really think he's faithful because we spent time comparing our life to somebody else's life. We're looking at all our unanswered prayer requests. We're looking at all our unrealized dreams and God, you said, and what happened to, and how come, and why. And so we question his faithfulness. When things happen to people around us and we can't explain it, and tragedy and trauma comes upon us, and we're like, God, I mean, really? We start coming with the questions. And so God's faithfulness has to be something that you're convinced of. Number 3, God will give you what you need in order for you to rest. This is real simple, but God gives you what you need in order to rest. We're going to read the next chunk of scripture in Exodus chapter 16. I want y'all to read something real interesting. Now, verse 22. I read the NASB too, in case anybody asks. This time it changes, but NASB. Chapter 16, verse 22. Now on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread. On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread. 2 omers for each one, because originally it was 1 omer per person. That's just a measurement, a unit of measure. When all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, this is what the Lord meant. Tomorrow is a Sabbath observance, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil, and all that's left over, put aside to be kept until morning. So they put it aside till morning as Moses had ordered, and it did not become foul. Somebody say, did not become foul. Nor was there any worm in it. Moses said, eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will be none. It came about on the 7th day, verse 27, that some of the people went out together, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, he gives you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. Remain every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. Verse 30, so the people rested on the 7th day. Listen, God gives you what you need in order to rest. Verse 22, he gave them twice as much bread to be put aside to the morning. Remember, Sabbath is not a crash course. It's not a quick departure. It's not, I'm out of here, I'm leaving this ministry, I'm leaving this job, I'm leaving. That's not what Sabbath is. Preparation is when you're going into a Sabbath. God is making room for Sabbath. And so he gives them double what they need because he's preparing them for rest. God makes room for your rest. Do you make room for your rest? See, most of us go until we crash. But what about making provision? What about making room, creating space for your rest? They put it aside to be kept till morning. Remember, God sets us up for the Sabbath, so we don't have to worry or doubt. I don't know when your 6th day will be, but God will give you what you need when you have a rhythm of rest with him. He can give extra, but we should never take extra. Here's the important part. Verse 24, it says they put the extra aside, but it did not become foul or spoil like it did in verse 20. The same provision, y'all, but one was gathered in fear, one was gathered in faith. The same provision, but one was gathered in doubt, and one was gathered in dependence. And one went bad and one did not. So when you're looking around sometimes, you're like, God, what's going on with mine and theirs? And wait a minute, when I did this last month, it was fine. He's like, no, but your heart was different. See, God is like, why are you gathering? What's your intent? Is it because you don't trust me? Oh, I'll tell you how that's going to go. That's going to be rotten before you wake up in the morning. And you might not see it spoil because our spiritual eyesight is kind of bad. It might not hit us until years down the line, but that thing is spoiling when it was not gathered in faith. God is saying, I will give you exactly what you need. Here's what else is interesting. Verse 26, he says, 6 days you'll gather, on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will be none. Somebody say none. God will stop your productivity so you can rest in his provision. God will shut that thing down. He said, there will be none. How many times have you racked your brain, asked your friends, Google, try, and it seems like nothing is working? And your body is fading. You're like, let me just get some coffee. Let me just do that. How many times have we just pressed through? And God is like, you can try. But when you go out there and gather, there will be none. You can go out there and try, and you can wonder why these same efforts are not producing any fruit. He's like, because I'm the fruit holder. I'm not giving you nothing. Because your intent is wrong. You don't trust me. You don't know how to rest. I will shut that thing down. Just because you work more hours, clean more house, raise kids with more hours, and do more research and more homework does not mean you're going to produce more fruit. God will shut down the field when you're not living in faith. And so then it becomes a cycle. Then you're resting even less because you're like, wait a minute, I got to work more to get the same amount. I got to work more now to get less. And God is just sitting there like, whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready to recognize that I'm the only one that provides, I'll open up the field again. But until then, you'll find yourself with your time and energy and effort and resources on the increase and your productivity on the decrease. Because God says you're going to go out there, but there will be none. So it could be that the fruitless place in your life doesn't need more work. It needs more rest. It could be the place where you're trying to get God to do something. You're trying to make something grow, a vision, a dream. You're trying to give birth to something. God is saying, you don't need more effort. I need more trust. When are you going to let your hands off of it so I can do what I want to do with it? It might just need more rest. Now, that's counterintuitive, y'all. But I'm telling you, God says, you go out there together and there will be, all right, it wasn't me. Remember, it was the word. I want y'all to be mad at me. So he'll stop your productivity, and he knows they're going to try to gather. That's why he says, verse 27 says, it came out on the seventh day. Some of the people went out together. Now, they already knew. Listen, this is the greed of our society. It's not even just the children of Israel. They got double on the sixth day. They know they got double. And on the seventh day, what they do? Still went out there looking. And I know God was like, what you looking for? You have extra. You want me to give you double so you can prepare to rest, and you want to keep the double and still try to get some more. Because that's what we do. If I get a little extra, how can I get a little more extra? And he said, this is why your heart is jacked. Ignoring this Sabbath, y'all, is counterproductive. Don't ask, how can I work more? Where do I need to rest more? Here's the thing. The goal, here's the fourth point. Not only God's faithfulness is what we need, God's rest. God will, what did I say? My last point. Y'all get me off track. What did I say? Oh, God gives you what you need to rest. Number 4, the goal is to see, to stop, and to savor. The goal of Sabbath is to see, to stop, and to savor. I want you to look at verse 29. He says, see. See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, he gives you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. Then he goes on to say, remain every man in his place. Let no man go out on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. This goal is God is saying, I want you to take notice. See how I take care of you. It's the same idea in Matthew 7 when Jesus is talking to the crowd and he's saying, listen, do you see the birds of the field? Do you see the lilies, the birds of the air and the lilies of the field? Look, God is clothing them. How much more will he clothe you? He's like, I need you to observe, because here's the thing about it. A lot of times we don't see. We just feel and then we react. He's saying, but if you would open your eyes and really see what I'm doing, then you would understand that the Lord provides for you. He's making room for your rest. And then he says, not only do I want you to see what I'm doing, I want you to be still. Stop. It's Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I'm God. But he's saying remain. Y'all say remain. Every man in his place. Now, here's what that word means. It's not just a physical stillness. It really means to dwell, to abide, to tarry, or to inhabit. It's the word often used in scripture when you see families and generations of people saying they settled into a land. That word settled is the same word here for remain. They live somewhere, they dwell somewhere. To abide, that's what it means to remain. So God is saying, not only do I want you to see what I'm doing, Sabbath is about savoring me. I want you to be saturated in who I am. Be fully present. It's not just go to sleep. It's not just veg out. It's not take a day off. It's not work from home. It's not work from the bed. It's not do other work. I want you to be done. See what I'm doing and savor it. Because when God rested on the seventh day, he looked at his divine work and said, yes, it is good. And sometimes the key to our peace and the reason we don't have any is because we don't spend enough time declaring what God has done that's already good. You just need to look at your life sometimes and say, all the unanswered prayers, all the unresolved issues, I can just still list off things that are good. God has been faithful to me. He's given me joy and peace. He's some manner of health and strength. He's given me friends. He's given me a church home, a country I can be free with my religion. I don't care what it is. You can spend a day just looking and seeing and savoring the goodness of God. You need to just take him in sometimes. Just drink him in sometimes. And don't come with your hands out. You know what I'm saying? Just come like, Lord, just fill me up. I just want to be immersed in you. I want to be saturated in your goodness. Clear my mind. Because when I think about the goodness of Jesus, it changes the perspective of everything else. And it becomes the key to my rest. But listen, not only must every man remain, he said remain in his place. Now, y'all not going to like this part. He said, not only do I want you to remain and dwell and abide and fully be inhabited with me, I want you to do it wherever I have you right now. Them amens is them three people that like where they are right now. But listen, some of us don't like where we are right now. And we're not trying to remain. We're trying to work to get up out of this situation. And he's saying, if you're going to have Sabbath rest, and it hinges on my ability and my faithfulness and my goodness, if you are savoring me, then who I am is bigger than where you are. So you need to be able to remain, be fully present in your current place, and stop spending so much time trying to move on to the next thing. It could be that God wants to see if you can rest where you are before he moves you. He wants to know if your rest is really in him, the Lord, or your location. So why don't you say, God, how do I remain here? How do I keep all this energy from trying to move and relocate myself? How can I find joy and peace and rest right here? He says, you got to remain in your place. Quit trying to go out to the field to gather. It's closed anyway. You might as well. He said, you got to like where you are. Because you cannot say you like God and love God and trust God and question where you are. Those two don't go. Those two don't go. Even if you're where you are for your own fault, you still have to trust the sovereignty of God, that he's good and he's able and he's a provider, and that somehow in the midst of where you are today, he can give you Sabbath rest. He says, every man remain in his place. And finally, it says, the people rested on the seventh day. Finally. We got to see what God is doing. Not just see what we need from God. Step back and see what God is doing. See what God has done. If you forget, sometimes you need to write down your story so you can reread it yourself. Because we can forget so many things that God, we are so concerned about the next thing that we need to pull up our own journal and say, good Lord, I forgot about that. Oh, I thank you, God. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Lord, you are good. You are good. Today, I'm just going to savor what you did for me in my parents' house. Today, I'm just going to savor how you protected me in college. Today, I'm just going to savor how you protected me as a parent, how you protected me when I wasn't taking care of my body. Today, I'm going to savor when I let all that stuff go into my mind, how you kept my mind some kind of way. Today, I'm going to savor the fact that some people did not wake up this morning, and that's not a cliche. I have a friend who knows someone who last night their life was taken in a car accident, because we don't know the day or the hour. So while we're here, we have to see and savor. That's the only way we can find rest. The world does not want you to be satisfied ever. They want you to strive every day. Grind, grind, grind. When you achieve, go for the next thing. It's never enough. More, more, more. God's saying the opposite. He's saying if you would just see and savor, you'd be surprised what I do while you sleep.